Hi everybody, I hope you're all well. It is absolutely freezing where I am right now. We're going through a cold snap again. It is -5 at the moment and it is 12 degrees centigrade in my living room right now. So I am freezing. I've put the heating on. I am in my Christmas jumper again because I don't care. A jumper is a jumper at the end of the day, and I'm cold. And I've dragged my duvet downstairs as well, so I've got some warmth. It is ridiculous how bitterly cold it hit yesterday. I mean, it has been cold throughout the week, but it's still been like I could go outside for a walk, with my coat open still. It's cold, but it wasn't like ridiculous. It was about 6 degrees centigrade, so I was doing okay. And then yesterday the freezing fog came in and we had it like load of the day. We've got a load of the day today as well, and it's freezing. So yeah, this might be shorter than my usual reviews just because I am so cold right now and I need to get this done. So this week has been much better than previous couple of weeks, which have been very stressful in that. We're still trying to figure out what's going on with my dad, but he's doing okay. And I've been doing, work as usual. Work wasn't as bad this week, which is good. So I was able to spend time and actually relax and do stuff that I wanted to do, need to do in the evening. I was able to switch off and just chill. And so I got through the book I'm here to review, which is I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. So this is a book that I got because I wanted to read some more classics that I've always seen, but I've never gone near, and so I just thought, why not? And it was on, that poster I got years ago now, of 100 book bucket list, and you had to scratch off the panel whenever you had read one of the books. This was on that list, and I thought, this is a book that just, it always stands out because I adore that cover on bookshelves, and I really love vintage, the classics collection. Their classics are absolutely brilliant, and I adored their Anna Karenina and War and Peace especially. That was absolutely brilliant the way that they did that. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to vintage and I'm going to get the I Capture the Capsule. I keep saying capsule and it's castle. Why am I saying capsule? I swear it's the cold, it's gone to my brain. Sorry about that. Castle. So in case you don't know what this book is about, it follows a girl who's about 16 years old called Cassandra Mortimer in the 1930s, where she lives in a castle with her rather eccentric family. And it's written as like a journal kind of diary form, and it's in the 1930s. Her family had basically took the castle. It was being rented out for 40 years, and they are 10 years into those 40 years, and they're not a wealthy family at all. Their dad is a writer, though he has only written one book many years before, and he's never written another. Cassandra's, technically she's the middle child, but she's the youngest child who's there for a significant chunk because her younger brother Thomas is away at school, and she has an older sister called Rose, and their stepmother lives there with them, and her name is Topaz. Topaz is just so interesting, I find. She's this very bohemian, passionate artist. I'm trying to think of ways to describe her that just doesn't make her sound like kind of off the wall, but she's kind of a bit spiritual as well. Art is the key thing to everything, and that's what kind of drew her to her husband. And Cassandra, Rose and Thomas's mother, just so you're aware, had died several years before the beginning of the book. So that's how Topaz came into the situation. So she really fell in love with her Topaz really fell in love with her husband based on his writing, but not really who he is as a person. And so, yeah, they all lived together in this castle in the 1930s in England. And one day, the actual heirs to the castle, a couple of Americans, turn up, and it's all to do with these men who come into their lives and how they impact the lives of the Mortimers, and especially Cassandra. And it's a real coming of age story for Cassandra. It kind of gave me the vibes, even though it's not the same because Cassandra is 16, but it did kind of give me the vibes of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which the trailer for the film version dropped, I think, week or so ago now. I'm quite excited to see, because I was obsessed with that book when I was a teenager. I loved Margaret so much, but that thing of first time noticing someone and what it feels like to go through this passage from childhood into womanhood. So that's why, it made me think of that. Now, Dodie Smith, I never read any of Dodie Smith's work before, and I did some research on this. This is her first novel that she wrote when she was it was published when she was, I think, 52. I don't know exactly how long she'd been writing it, but she was an established playwright and such before this time. And she wrote it because she and her husband had to move to America because he was a conscientious objector to the war. And so they fled, basically, fled England to live in America. And her nostalgia about England led her to write this book. So it's full of, it's very clear that a woman has written this, and we watch Cassandra grow up, so we know that she is a woman, but she is writing these kind of journals and diary entries when she is 16. So it's not like she's 12 or 13, where it would be, rather, you could see that a lot more drastically. She is 16, so she is older, and you can understand her using certain words or phrases and such at the age of 16 then compared to like 12. So it does make sense that this is from the older Cassandra, as it were, collecting these together to present. So yeah, Dodie is also famed for writing 101 Dalmatians and her various plays and everything. So yes, I went into this, obviously I know the story of 101 Dalmatians, but I've never read the book. I've never read the words of Dodie Smith. I think she's a very interesting writer. I do have that feeling, though, as I didn't know it at the time, but as I was reading it, I was like, this woman, she's an established writer. There's something to do with her writing here, that just the way that it flows and the quirkiness and such. And she does this thing that is very fourth wall breaking all the time, and it made me think of Fleabag. So, for example, like she's talking about that, she does this a lot when talking about Topaz and Rose, and Topaz especially, where like she's having this conversation with Topaz, and then she just like cuts to this line, saying something like, Topaz tends to like think that she knows a lot about everything. So, for example, I was having a conversation with Father about War and Peace, and she came in saying something like, "Oh, how great the philosophy and all this various stuff about it," yet didn't know who Natasha was. It was like every single thing has got a slight to it. And there was like another bit where Topaz was showing Cassandra a painting that she had done of Cassandra's father. She said, "Oh yes, I think it captures him beautifully." And then it says like, the painting is a series of orange triangles. Just like it's just like you can feel the annoyance, despite. So that breaking of the fourth wall constantly made me think of Fleabag, and in a way you can kind of see that Fleabag is also is and is not. I totally get the people go, I don't agree with that, but kind of because we're going through the story of Fleabag's life, we are in a way going like Cassandra with her diary and journal entries and such, doing the same kind of thing. So I just found that very interesting how I Capture the Castle and Fleabag are really quite similar, but they are very different at the same time. So the actual the fourth wall breaking, the way that it was constructed, the characterizations, the scenes that very much, with dialogue and everything, felt like a play. I very much felt like, okay, this is someone who's written a lot. And then when I clicked, searching on the internet, and it said this is a debut novel, I was like, no, it can't be. And that's when I've read, okay, so she was a playwright before she wrote this book. That makes sense. Now, she is visceral in her writings, but at some points I felt like I needed more in areas. So, for example, she's very visceral when she talks about food. She constantly talks about food. Because the family are poor, they've been selling off the furniture and such, and so everything has to be accounted for. So when Cassandra says that she's made this meal, she will list everything in that meal, how much it cost, the colours, all of that kind of stuff. Whereas, like, I would, at parts, I'm like, I really love that extra level of detail, like on some areas of the castle, or the other surrounding areas that she talks about as the story takes you through, and just like, oh, if that little detail was extra there, then there. And I think the reason why is because she's a playwright. So, that's it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. What I'm saying is that she is seeing more of the stage, as it were. So Cassandra's saying this stuff to an audience rather than to the individual reader. I know that probably doesn't make sense, but yeah, you can see the food as the audience and everything, but she's not necessarily going to give that same level of detail to stuff that's up in the corners, as it were. I just, yeah. So there were some bits where I was a bit like, oh, she's doing the right thing, but at the same time, for me, I'd like her to do a little bit of that. But that's just me personally. Some people could have absolutely no problem with what she's written and such. So yeah. So there was a little bit of struggle at time to time for me, but it didn't, ruin the situation. It didn't ruin the book at all. So, there we are. Also, I don't know why, maybe it's the coming of age thing or whatever, it also brought to mind to me Anne Frank's diary. I know, very, very interesting. Just because everyone is very cramped into this one space. Occasionally they do have, there's a trip to London, and there's, some bits at the train station, that kind of day out, but it's mainly about this castle and all of the different, levels and corridors and all this kind of stuff. And all of the characters are very, very different. Some are very extreme and some aren't. Some are just kind of wedged in the middle, as it were. And so the breaking the fourth wall, the direct talking to the reader and everything, the fact that it is diary and journals, it made me think of Anne Frank. And yeah, I found that very, very interesting, especially given the time that this was written. Actually, what was the exact year it was published? Let me just check. Sorry, bear with. 1949 is when it was written, when it was published. So yeah, it just, there's something about that, and it does feel like you're in a time capsule, which is very much like the Diary of Anne Frank. It feels like when you're reading this, that this is, even though it's fiction, obviously, it does feel like you're peeking into the past. Like you've been let into this eccentric drop in time, that you don't quite know where you sit in it. It just feels you're very welcomed in, but you're also very much aware that it's kind of like this is that time is a speck of dust in the whole span of the universe, just as we all are specks of dust in a society that doesn't even know that we're there, really. You know what I mean? It's just, it's so interesting. It feels like, yeah, you've captured a gem and not realized reading this. There's something so captivating about it. And what I adore also, I love the fact that Dodie's not afraid to talk about dark things. So the father in the family, no spoilers here, but he has anger issues. He has anger management issues. And the way that that is played out, and the way that Cassandra views it when she's looking back over her childhood, and then as a 16-year-old and going into womanhood, she realizes some things about her father. And it's so interesting how the view of a parent can sometimes shift in someone's gaze. It's like she's always seen him as, oh, that's my eccentric dad, but she's never seen him as a person. And when she does see him as a person, it becomes so interesting how she then reflects on what she wants in her life. And also it is that thing that, we tend to go into various relationships from what we've learned from our childhood. And so does the choices that she makes at this period in her life about the people that she loves and who she accepts into her heart, is that because of her father and the choices that he made in his life? It's very, very interesting how she reflects on her life and her father and such. But at the same time, there is this sort of layer of lightheartedness to it, which gives me the vibes of like the Railway Children. So I'm thinking of Fleabag and Frank, the Railway Children, and jazz music, because it's set in the 1930s, jazz music and the great outfits, but also the Great Depressions that have, I know that was 1920s, but still the knock-on effect I'm talking about. It just, there is something about this book where it's like a time capsule and you've been let in, very, very open, welcomed, let into this eccentric family. And I felt quite sad having to let them go, to be honest. It was really interesting. I didn't know what I was going into. I was at times I found myself a bit perplexed, at times I found it really fun, and at times I found it really incredibly sad. But it's just such a lovely gem of a book. I understand why it's become a classic. It's just, yeah. I think Cassandra, even though at times, I want to scream at her and just, oh, for God's sake, I have to remember that she is only 16 years old. And I think I would like to get to know her as a woman, if it was possible to meet fictional characters in real life. But yeah, I think she's a very interesting character, and to have her perspective lead us through the castle and such. And just so you're aware, I didn't mention the reason why it's called I Capture the Castle is that she says specifically that she wants to capture life in the castle. She wants to be a writer like her father, and the best way to do that, she says, you can't, she doesn't want to go to college and learn university and learn about writing from a lecture. You can only really write from life, from life experience, and so she wants to capture life's experience through her diary and journal entries. So that's what it's called, I Capture the Castle. And yeah, and I love the fact that with the ending, no spoilers, of course, they end rather ambiguously. There's no kind of definitive ending. And I like that because it lets you know that the world is open to Cassandra. It's time for her to make decisions about her life and her destiny. But you know that the world, instead of being in this time capsule, this castle that is her whole world, the door is open and she can go out and do what she wants to do. And so I really see the ending, firstly sad that it was over, but secondly hopeful. And I'm so happy for Cassandra that she has the ability to go off and do whatever she wants to do, which is wonderful. So yeah. So I did mention when in my previous review, when I showed that I was reading this book, that there is a BBC Radio 4 adaptation, which I will include the Audible link to below in the description, starring Holliday Grainger as Cassandra and Toby Jones as her eccentric father. I listened to that yesterday. I really liked it. I think it caught the book well, definitely. Holliday Grainger, I think she was great casting as Cass, but I have to say the actress who played Topaz, who sorry, I can't remember her name off the top of my head right now, but it will be in the Audible link, of course. She was outstanding. I loved her as Topaz. She totally understood Topaz and played her beautifully. The rest of the cast did as well, but as soon as Topaz appeared, I was like, yeah, there she is. There she is. She stands out so much in the book for me that I just hoped that she would be the same in the radio play, and she really is. So yeah, I very much enjoyed the radio play of it. Toby Jones I thought was a very interesting choice for her father, because I didn't necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily envision him as being the head of the Mortimer household, given the characteristics of his character. But then it does make sense at the same time, because he is this eccentric character. You don't necessarily know what he's going to be like in any given scene. So Toby Jones has this. He is an amazing actor. If you haven't come across him, look him up. You might know him, but very well, as the voice actor of Dobby in the Harry Potter films. There you go, Harry Potter, woohoo! And the way he can act is extraordinary. Everything I have seen him in, from National Theatre stuff to very early in his career, like Ever After was one of his first films, the Drew Barrymore Cinderella film, all the way to what else has he been? Things like The Hunger Games and such. He's brilliant in it. I love Toby Jones so much. So if you haven't come across him, look him up. He's absolutely brilliant. And so yeah, his casting totally does make sense. At the same time, I think everyone brought their A game in that drama, in that radio play, and I got it from Audible with one of my credits, monthly credits, and I will definitely be listening to it over and over again. I haven't been able to look into any other versions of I Capture the Castle, because I only finished this yesterday, so I can't give any thoughts on any other adaptations, but I'm sure there are other ones out there. So those are my thoughts on I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. Time to ask my usual questions. Would I read this again? Yeah, I think I definitely would. I quite like to hang out with the Mortimer clan again, and go exploring the castle and hang out with some very interesting characters. So would I recommend this to anyone? Yeah, I think I definitely would. I don't have anything to say, because previously I have said, yes, I would, but I would give this caveat, or I give that caveat. I don't think I would give a caveat for this. I just think it's a charming, nostalgic look at the 1930s with a really interesting family. So yeah. definitely recommend it to anyone. Would I read any more of Dodie Smith's work? Yeah, I think I would. I've never read any of her books before, but yeah, I'd look into reading some more. And now I can scratch off the I Capture the Castle panel on my bucket list poster, which is currently up in my study. So yeah, I can do that today. Well, hey. So, those are my thoughts on I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave me comments in comment box below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely up to you, let you decide. And I'll be back with my thoughts on my next read, which is Victor Hugo's Notre Dame de Paris. I haven't read Victor Hugo since Les Miserables, which was, I think, 4 years ago now. So yeah, I've missed Victor. I quite like to read some more of his writing, and so going back to with Notre Dame de Paris, otherwise known as The Hunchback of Notre Dame, I think will be a good one. So yeah, I'll give you my thoughts on that as soon as I am done. All right, guys, bye.